Warren, what do you consider the most important quality for an investment manager?
It's a temperamental quality, not an intellectual quality. You don't need tons of IQ in this business. I mean, you have to have enough IQ to get from here to downtown Omaha, but you do not have to be able to play three-dimensional chess or be in the top leagues in terms of bridge playing or something of the sort. You need a stable personality. You need a temperament.
In this rare interview, Buffett dropped an extremely important piece of information, but he didn't explain it all the way. And it's crucial that you understand exactly what he meant so you can approach the stock market in the right way to protect and grow your money. So let's break down the truth of what he's saying in this video. So what's the first thing that Buffett said in this clip? He said you don't need a high IQ to be successful in the stock market. You don't have to play three-dimensional chess. And this is important to state because it really is a common misconception that I see all the time. A lot of people think that you got to be a genius to make money in the stock market, but it's not true. And the reason why a lot of people think that, well, that's actually Wall Street's fault. They did it on purpose. What Wall Street tries to do is make you feel stupid to ensure that they have a job. What do I mean by that? Well, they like to make everything very complicated. Because if it's very complicated, then guess what? You're going to need them to do it for you. And then they get to charge you for it. And yeah, I know right now we're talking about investments, but how many other industries do you know that this happens in? Lawyers, for example. Why is the law so complicated? Taxes. Taxes are super complicated. And you know who lobbies the most to keep taxes complicated? Companies like TurboTax. Because they want to be there to provide that service because it's too hard for you to do it yourself. So again, Wall Street does this same thing to people, but in this case, it actually can be very simple. I swear Wall Street is like a shoe shiner who offers to shine your shoes, and when you say no, he scuffs your shoe, and then he's like, hey, well, I provide a buffing service. How do you like that? Basically creating a problem that they can fix. And that's why when you first get into the market, or if you talk to any of these guys who are trying to sell you something, they throw all these numbers and jargon at you. And a good tip is whenever someone is speaking in real complicated terms, and they aren't actually able to explain anything to you, well then most likely they don't know what they're talking about. And if you don't believe me, well, you could believe Albert Einstein. He said if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you don't understand it yourself. Now I actually thought that was Richard Feynman who said that, but I guess not. So I guess a real quick side lesson we could take here from Buffett is don't be scared of the stock market and Wall Street. They're nothing special. In fact, some of the most successful investors of all time really came from nothing. They didn't have a Wall Street pedigree or anything. For example, this guy, you may not know him, but his name is Dan Zanger, and he is one of the most successful investors ever. You can see here he holds the world record for his trading. In 1 year, his stock market appreciated 29,000%, and in under 2 years, he turned 10,000, well, almost 11,000 here, into $18 million. Now, was he some genius from Wall Street? No, he was not. Dan here went to college, but then dropped out to snow ski for a few years in Colorado and Idaho. He had a few odd jobs like a bellhop and a cab driver and a prep cook to support himself during his early 20s. So no, he wasn't at Harvard or anything like that. Eventually, he moved back to LA with a high school education and no professional trade experience or education. Nothing. Started from nothing. He started working for a landscaping company and eventually got his California contractor's license. And that's when he ventured into pool building in Beverly Hills as an independent contractor where he made a modest living from then on. So Dan Zanger here was building pools for a living before he went into the stock market and absolutely crushed it. Now, I'm not saying people who build pools are dumb. I definitely couldn't do it. I just have to splash around in my bathtub. But the point is that he didn't have some genius IQ or some amazing Wall Street background. If you want another example, take Bruce Kovner here, who is worth $5.3 billion. He's featured in the Market Wizards books, and he is an absolute legend. And you know what he did before he was in the markets? He was a cab driver. Once again, not some genius with some genius IQ. For him, the biggest thing that opened his mind to the stock market was his mentor showing him a check with $1 million on it. Because before that point, Bruce didn't think anyone could make money like that. But once he saw it, then he believed it. And then clearly at 5.3 billion, he, took off from there. Once again, not a genius. In fact, a lot of the times, the smarter that you are, the worse you actually do in markets. And I see this all the time. A lot of people from other professions that are like very high level, like doctors, engineers, really smart people, they come into the market and get absolutely crushed. And again, from their profession, they're clearly smart enough to do well in the market, right? Because you don't even need to be smart. But the problem problem is that because of their past success in these other professions, they think they're too smart. And when people are too smart in the market, what often happens is that they refuse to change. They don't want to work with the market. They want to just constantly try to outsmart it. I see it all the time, and these guys are the biggest losers. The thing is, they don't often blow out, like they're not completely thrown out of the market because they have so much money coming in from being a doctor or whatever. But the actual dollar amounts are crazy that they're just losing day in and day out. And what it really comes down to for these people is their ego. That becomes the big problem. And I'm sure we've all met super smart people that have that super large ego, which you cannot have in the stock market at all. Because in the stock market, you got to understand that the stock market itself is always going to be smarter than you. You absolutely have to stay humble at all times, or the market will humble you in the sense that you're going to lose money. A dumb person would never have that problem because they didn't think they were that smart in the first place. So they're willing to change and work within the market rules instead of trying to outsmart it. And if you want an example of when the smartest geniuses just blew up their hedge fund, you can look at long-term capital management, LTCM. Here's a pretty popular book that dove into that story. And you can see right here, it's called When Genius Failed. And this happened in the 90s. It was a hedge fund called Long-Term Capital Management, and they had a bunch of PhDs, super smart guys, pocket protectors, everything. Had some Nobel winners in economics, just the smartest team possible. And they thought, hey, we're all geniuses. I think we cracked this market thing. And they did well for a bit, and then they had a massive, massive blow up. Within a few months, they lost $4.6 billion. And not only that, but they had to be bailed out by a bunch of banks in the Federal Reserve. And the reason they had to be bailed out is because they were about to cause a financial crisis. With all that money and all the ways that they were connected into Wall Street, they had to be bailed out. Too big to fail, I guess. I don't know. But there you go, right? There's a whole bunch of smart people that got just blown up and caused a lot of problems. In fact, I could tell you some of the best strategies in the stock market for making money are also very simple. They're so simple, in fact, that a lot of the smart people can't handle them. Why? Because they're too simple and they don't feed that ego. They're not complex enough and complicated, and it's not something you can even brag about. It's boring, simple, but it works. I'll give you an example of one of the tests we've done with my partners at Macro Ops. Just to prove a point, we simulated picking a bunch of random stocks, and what we would do is we would buy in, and if the stock went down $1, we would sell, or if it went up $2, we would sell as well. So what are we doing there? Making sure that we sell when there's a profit and then cut our loss pretty short, right? $2 up, we sell, $1 down, we sell. So we ran that experiment a bunch of times with a bunch of tests, and guess what? We were profitable, meaning that there was an edge in that very, very simple strategy that we're doing. And like I said, we were just picking random stocks here. Nothing fancy about it, but do you think a smart person would ever pick a strategy like that? No way. No, because you can't brag about it at a cocktail party. And that's something you really got to think about when you're in the stock market. What are you in it for? Are you in it to show off, to post on Reddit, or are you in it to actually make money? And it's actually shocking how many people are doing it without that money-making objective being at the top. Most are trying to prove they're smarts and satisfy their ego. So, okay, I think we beat this to death, right? You do not need to be smart to be successful in the stock market, just like Buffett said. But there is one thing that you really do need that most people don't have. And this is absolutely crucial over everything else to make money in the market. And we're going to dive into that right now, so keep watching. Let's flash back to the clip where Buffett explains it.
You need a stable personality. You need a temperament.
Now, having this stable personality and temperament, this is so crucial to being successful in the market, as I keep saying. And that's because the stock market is literally made to screw with you. And while it's trying to screw with you, what becomes your job? To control your emotions, and that becomes very, very tough. Because think about all the times when you're in the stock market, you find a great stock and you buy it, and the next day it collapses. Down 5%. Day after that, down another 5%. And then you're wondering, oh God, do I sell? What do I do? Then you decide, okay, I'll sell it. As soon as you sell it, the stock shoots up. Then you're thinking, oh God, why did I sell? I should have stayed in it. You buy in again, and then it collapses again. How often has that happened to you? It's happened to me. It's happened to everybody. And it gets to the point where you're thinking, is there just a little guy behind the market who's just trying to mess with me? It's like the market goes in the opposite direction of whatever you're doing. And it really gets into your head, especially because you have your money on the line. If it wasn't your money and your life savings that you're putting into the market wouldn't be that bad. But the fact that it's money that makes people go crazy. It becomes a super emotional process because what is that money? It's your livelihood. And every time the market takes it away, you feel like it's taking away your life. So your emotions, even when you have a successful strategy, they end up hurting you the most. For example, one strategy you've probably heard about is buy and hold, invest in index funds, and just hold it, don't touch it, and only look at it once you're retired. Well, That is a strategy that actually does work, at least in the US, because of our markets the way they are. But how many people are actually able to do that? How many people are able to sit through a 2008 and not sell when the whole world is collapsing? Because the trick for that buy and hold strategy is to buy and hold, right? Sounds simple enough, but when you're seeing half of your net worth get decimated, do you think you're not going to sell? Of course you think you're not going to sell. We all do. But realistically, when you look at the numbers, most people sell and they get hurt really bad because, again, it's too emotional. That's another problem with the smart people that get into the market. They're even more emotional because they can't believe that what they're doing is not working. They're smart. So they get really tilted and they keep doing more and more stupid stuff. Now, the strategy that I use and all of our Fallible members use as well, it's, again, very simple. It's all laid out. There's alerts and everything. But at the end of the day, it can still be tough to pull the trigger on an investment. And that's why all our members go through psychology training once they have the strategy, because it's not just the strategy, it's you yourself. You got to be able to control yourself. You got to be able to fix your temperament. So realistically, if super simple strategies work in the market and you don't got to be a genius, then the hard part about the market is actually managing your emotions. And part of managing your emotions is being able to lose in the market. You got to be a good loser because yes, every single person in the market takes a loss. It's part of the game. You can't avoid them. So you need to be able to deal with them, which is interesting because in this video just now, we broke down some of Buffett's advice, right? And it was great advice. But another piece of Warren Buffett's advice is that you should never lose money. But realistically, in the market, you absolutely are going to take losses. So is Buffett lying about his own advice, or what exactly does he mean? Well, we're going to break it down in this video right here. You should click that because this is a very important concept to understand in the market so you don't lose the wrong way. Like I said, everybody loses. So definitely click over to this video so you can understand that next piece of Buffett's advice, which is very crucial. Do that right now. You don't got to look at me anymore. And I will see you in that video. See you there.